What is Plants vs Zombies? Well, it's a tower defense game where you fight off zombies by planting plants on a lawn consisting of 5 lanes. 5, not 1. Why would anyone try to play through the game with 1 lane? That's kinda ridiculous, not gonna lie. Why would anyone do that, right? What we're about to do is quite insane. This is Plants vs Zombies 2 with only 1 lane. Oh yeah, and here are the rules. We can choose 1 lane per level, and that's the 1 lane we're allowed to use through the whole level. The only exceptions to this are pre-planted plants. This means we can leave them there to do their thing, but we aren't forced to use their lane, nor are they forced to be in our lane. The 1 lane rule only restricts the plants we place, not the plants already on the lawn at the start of the level. Adventure and Gemium plants are allowed, but Seediums and Money Premiums are not. Power-ups, extra plant food, and Zen Garden boosts are also banned. I think it goes without saying now as well that all of our plants will be level 1 except our forced level 2 peashooter. Also, probably most importantly, we'll be skipping levels where we can't pick any of our plants, such as locked and loaded levels and conveyor levels. This is because the nature of this challenge requires some specific plants that we need to bring into a lot of levels. Let's jump straight in. Day 1 was the only level in this challenge where nothing actually changed because, as you can see, the game only gives us 1 lane to begin with. But as day 2 came around, we started encountering problems. What's green, long, and not Shrek's schlong? That's right, more lanes of grass. But if you read the title of this video or saw the thumbnail, which I'm assuming you did unless you're blind or like watching videos blindfolded for some reason, then you would know that we can't actually use any of these new lanes. But zombies still spawn in them, obviously. So, what now? Do we just end the video right here? Challenge over? Well, if you've seen enough of my challenge videos before, you know that whenever I say a rhetorical question like that, I always abuse some new plant or mechanic in the game to overcome the obstacle. This time around, it's infinite lawnmowers. No, this isn't a glitch, quite the opposite actually. Probably to make the game easier for new players, PopCap decided to give the first few levels in this game infinite lawnmowers. So what this means is that even though we can't get the zombies in the other lanes, our infinite lawnmower supply definitely can. As a side note, where on earth are these regenerating lawnmowers coming from? I mean, I'm probably thinking too deep about this, but whatever happened to the law of conservation of matter? We want answers, Dave. As you could probably guess, we used this game mechanic to clear the rest of the tutorial levels. On day 5, I literally did nothing the whole time and beat the level with only the pre-planted plants and lawnmowers, just to prove how much of the game handholds you in the beginning. Onwards to ancient Egypt. Okay, now what? We only have pea shooters and 2 pre-planted walnuts, but all 5 lanes to defend. To that I say, were you listening before? When there's a will, there's a way. And that way is infinite lawnmowers again. That's right, the game doesn't let up on giving you infinite lawnmowers just yet. So I just sat AFK and watched the lawnmowers do everything for the next 5 levels. This also meant we didn't have to break our no power up rule for day 2, which is meant to be the level where you win by spamming power ups for free. But again, we didn't have to do that with the infinite lawnmowers and a whole bunch of pre-planted plants. Day 6 was our first conveyor belt level, which I skipped as per our rules. To save time, I'm not going to mention these kind of levels, I'm just going to skip over them, and if I do skip over a level, it's because it was a locked and loaded level or a conveyor level. Next we unlocked the shop, which allows us to participate in all kinds of botanical capitalism, but we're particularly interested in the trafficking of a select few plants. These are of course Gemium plants, since we're banned from Seediums and Money Premiums. The first plant we bought was Homing Thistle, since its missiles target zombies in any lane, perfect for this challenge. On day 7 we flogged the cartoon mobile game zombies with a full lane of our newly purchased Homing Thistles. Day 8 was essentially the same, we just had to make sure we froze any explorer zombies that entered our Homing Thistle lane. Since we only have 1 lane, we have to be really particular with where we place our plants. Our general strategy is to plant Homing Thistles at the back after building up some sunflowers up front. Why have the sunflowers up front? Well, they're cheap and disposable, unlike our Homing Thistles, which are expensive and needed to get rid of zombies. So when an explorer jump scares us like this on day 9, we can easily replace the lost sunflowers without much of a loss in sun compared to if they were Homing Thistles. On day 10 I experimented with placing an iceberg lettuce in the first tile to prevent any sandstorms from infiltrating our Homing Thistles early on. This worked out pretty well, stopping a zombie in a sandstorm dead in its tracks. Pharaoh zombies first showed up on day 12, which we handled with some iceberg lettuceage and walnutage. This same core strategy let us flawlessly breeze through levels until day 18, which was the last stand level. This level really exposed some of Homing Thistle's flaws. The large amount of cannibal zombies broke through the walnut at the front of the lane, which had protected the Homing Thistles in previous levels. This allowed the zombies to get up close to the Homing Thistles. In case you didn't know, Homing Thistles are completely useless at defending themselves. Even if a zombie is right in front of it, it'll target the zombie closest to the house anyway. So the Homing Thistles will just let themselves die, so we have to rely on the lawnmowers to carry us for the first time since we unlocked Homing Thistle. Day 19 was relatively uneventful. On day 20 we tried a new setup with Bonk Choy behind the front walnut to help defend the defenseless Homing Thistles. This worked out well and kind of solved the Homing Thistle problem I was yapping about just then. We steamrolled through the next 2 days before day 23 where a Gargantua at the end forced us to use a mower. Yes, Gargantuas are starting to show up now. Just great. Day 24 was the last level for this world since day 25 is a conveyor belt level. Gravestones were an issue here since they took up tiles on our lane and we couldn't even use gravebusters on them since it was a last stand level. But the level was very generous with plant food which allowed us to free up space and beat the level, albeit with a couple mowers lost. This world shakes up the challenge a fair bit. Mainly because some lanes have less tiles than others. For example, I chose to use the middle lane on day 1, which was kinda dumb because the middle lane has about half the tiles of the other lanes. It doesn't really matter though because it was easy since it was the first level. The next 5 days were all nothing special or too out of the ordinary. Day 7 was a bit of a problem because of the newly introduced barrel rollers. These guys are troublesome for a couple of reasons. Firstly, they penetrate right through our walnut bonk choy defense and steamroll our sunflowers. And secondly, their idle barrels actually distract our homing thistles when they're closer to the house than the other zombies. These issues combined cause us to lose nearly all of our lawnmowers, but luckily we still won. The next few days were all pretty straightforward as well. Day 11 introduced imp cannons, who were a bit of a problem because they launched imps to the left of the lawn so they would distract our homing thistles, kinda like the barrel rollers. But this wasn't enough of a problem to cause us to lose. We could have technically skipped day 12, but I decided to try it for fun. So what does one lane in a coconut cannon gimmick level look like? Well, only using one of the coconut cannons since they're one per lane. Surprisingly, this was extremely easy since the score bar is really low. Literally 3 shots in and we were already above the winning threshold. I thought day 13 was going fine until... yeah, it's a produce sun level and I just completely forgot. On a second attempt, I tried not to have the memory of a goldfish with brain disease and actually changed up my strategy to meet the sun quota. Instead of immediately shoveling up the sunflowers for homing thistles, I just put 2 homing thistles at the back. But how did we protect the lane of sunflowers then? I put a walnut in front of the sunflowers and a spikeweed in front of the walnut. A classic but reliable strategy. Due to some captain zombies appearing, we had to replace the walnut occasionally because of parrots nabbing them, but it turned out well in the end. Day 14 was the last stand level, which I was expecting to be a lot harder than it actually was. All we had to do was place some homing thistles and a walnut as usual, but keep some coconut cannons at the back. I chose the middle lane as the coconut cannons could splash the zombies in the 2 adjacent lanes which also had no water. We only lost 1 mower. After beating this level we unlocked 3 Peter who could be useful since it hits multiple lanes. Day 15 had a flower line but it basically didn't matter because of how far back it was. We also had a pre-planted 3 Peter helping us out which was nice I guess. As you can see, day 16 was our first actually challenging level. Why? Well, to put it simply, there's 2 endangered spring beans and a whole lot of barrel rollers. All the while our homing thistles get distracted by imps and swashbucklers that end up to the left side of the lawn. So how did we beat this level? Well, believe it or not, spring bean was both the flaw and savior of this level. By using spring bean's plant food, we could basically clear the whole lawn of zombies. So doing that a few times got us through the final wave and took care of all the barrel rollers. Day 17 had us defending X zombies in X seconds. I thought that would be difficult with only 1 lane of plants, but things went so fast and I didn't even realize when we reached the goal, but we did. Day 19 had us producing sun and stopping the zombies from crossing the flowers. We actually beat the level on the first try by being meticulous with homing thistle placements and dragging out the level as long as possible with iceberg lettuce and walnut. There were a few very close calls though. Day 20 was literally just day 19 again but with no flower line and a significantly lower sun production quota. This game is weird when it wants to be. Day 21 was basically a harder version of the past 2 levels. Yet again we have to produce sun, except this time we have to produce a lot more of it. Thankfully there were no barrel rollers in this level so we could stall zombies with walnuts and iceberg lettuce again. There was some moments where luck did play a bit of a factor, I will admit. Day 22 was this level. Probably the most recognizable one in Pirate Seas. Can you see what the problem is here? There's not 1 full lane for us to use, only half lanes. I first tried the usual strategy, but that left us with heaps of spare sun and clearly was not going to work anyway. One of the problems was that we wanted to get rid of the imp cannons before they'd explode, launching imps across the whole lawn. But the low IQ homing thistles target the swashbucklers and launched imps because they're closer to the house, so the imp cannons never actually get targeted by them. I've solved this by adding coconut cannons to the setup, making use of our ridiculous amount of leftover sun. It was kind of annoying to time the coconuts so that they'd weave through all the swashbucklers and imps and actually reach the cannons without getting bodied, but I eventually got the hang of it. Even after all of this, our strategy wasn't cutting it at all. Just look at all of these imps. Next I tried using a cabbage pot at the back purely for its plant food to wipe out the hordes of imps, to no avail. Just about the only plant that actually helped in some way during my desperate experimentation turned out to be Kiwi Beast. I don't think I've ever used this plant seriously before, but here we are in 2024. A solid 8 years since it was added to the game, and I'm finally giving it a chance. And I think it's safe to say that it redeemed itself, at least for this level. This is because Kiwi Beast in its final form is pretty good at shredding through low health zombies. And if you look at the zombie lineup at this level, there's not a single zombie with more health than a measly imp, let alone coneheads or bucketheads. So this means that Kiwi Beast can delete the zombies in the central 3 lanes, clearing the path for our coconut cannons to fire their coconuts without getting blocked by imps, leaving only the top and bottom lanes with zombies still for the homing thistles to deal with. And would you believe it if I told you that this strategy still wasn't cutting it? After hours of attempts, things were looking pretty dire. But just as I was about to lose hope, I made a big revelation. What was causing us problems? Dwarfs. What's good at killing dwarfs? Shrinking Violet. Combining this gemian plant with plant food causes an imp genocide across the whole lawn, regardless of where the Shrinking Violet is planted. So my strategy quickly turned to destroy as many imp cannons as possible before the final wave with coconut cannons, then plant food Shrinking Violet on the final wave when the inevitable mountain of imps scatters across the lawn. Sounds simple, right? Well, wrong. I can't just wait for the cannons to die and launch the imps to plant food the Shrinking Violet, because that would be too simple, wouldn't it? Instead of all bursting at once, the imp cannons burst in waves because, well, they spawned in waves and their deaths and associated imp discharges activate after a certain amount of time. So what actually happened for the next hour of me trying this level was I'll get to the final wave and plant food the Shrinking Violet when the imps became too much, just for the next lot of imps to be ejaculated all over the lawn, and I could do nothing about it. However, there were 2 attempts where I got extremely close. The first one was this attempt where the lawn only had a few imps left, but homing thistles just couldn't do enough damage to clean them up. And the second attempt was my fault, I just straight up fumbled. I had the perfect scenario. All of the imps landed on the lawn together at the same time, and I still had a plant food left. All I had to do was plant food a Shrinking Violet, but I accidentally waited too long after planting the Shrinking Violet, so an imp triggered it prematurely before I could plant food it. You're watching some professional Plants vs Zombies gameplay at its finest. Then after all this time, literally a week of on and off testing and grinding, I got on this run. If there was ever a time where I felt like throwing my fist straight through my computer screen, this was it. If there was a baby or perhaps a small animal around, God help their soul, because I would have punted that shit straight up to the stratosphere. Okay, maybe I wasn't that mad, but I was absolutely pissed nonetheless. Then on the very next attempt, this happened. Okay, I'm not gonna waste your time with another montage, we actually won this time. So what did we do differently to win? Well, nothing really. All that caused us to win was some good old RNG, since more imps landed in the middle 3 lanes than last time, allowing the Kiwi Beast and some additional Shrinking Violets to take them out, leaving our homing thistles with less imps to manage. This level was about 10-fold the difficulty of any other level we've faced so far. You know the levels are getting hard when you have to pull out the most random plants in the game, like Kiwi Beast, or in the case of the peashooter challenge, Snap Pea. Shameless plug, but you should definitely watch that series too. There were some levels that made me pull out just as much hair as this one. Day 23 was much easier than the last level. I really liked the addition of Kiwi Beast in the front of the setup, so I decided it could stay. It just feels so good to have 9 tiles again instead of 5. Day 24 was just as easy. The endangered spring beans weren't really that much of a problem because the game gave us enough plant food to launch enough missiles to mog Kim Jong-un. We also unlocked Cherry Bomb, who will be useful since it blows up adjacent lanes. And that just about does it for Pirate Seas. I can already imagine while making this video that Day 22 will take up a considerable amount of screen time for this world, because the rest wasn't too bad at all. And now we find ourselves west of Wild, and we have a bit of a unique dilemma. Well, this whole challenge is a unique dilemma really, but specifically in this world we have minecarts. What does this mean? Well, technically we can bypass the whole one lane thing as long as we plant the plant on the minecart while it's in the one lane we're using for the level, in this case the middle lane. Then we can move around the plant since technically we planted it in the one lane. There's nothing in our rules that says we can't do this, and well, it's my video anyway, so it doesn't really matter what you think. I took full advantage of this in day 1 by placing a coconut cannon on the back minecart. We unlocked split pea, which I wasn't nearly as excited about as in the only pea shooter challenge. Day 2 introduced prospectors, which our homing thistles handle well because they automatically target them when they land. Sorry split pea. Day 3 introduced the pianist zombie, but well, coconut cannon. On day 5 I discovered how good Kiwi Beast's plant food ability is. We destroyed the whole level by making him jump back and forth on his ass. Day 6 was the last stand level with 3 minecarts to span all 5 lanes, so we could just cheese it with coconut cannon. Day 7 was basically just more Kiwi Beast twerking. Day 10 turned the whole challenge on its head though, with the introduction of floating feathers. In all seriousness, chicken wranglers make their first appearance in this level. Why does this change things up? Well, homing thistle is pretty bad at dealing with these guys. Their single targeting missiles only hit one chicken at a time, which results in this kind of situation. So I decided to enlist our newly unlocked lightning reed to add to the setup. Lightning Reed can technically only hit the middle 3 lanes, but its chain lightning can spread between zombies to reach the top and bottom lanes, making him good at reaching chickens across the board. This allowed us to beat the level without any chicken problems. Day 11 was so easy that we could beat it with only one homing thistle. Day 13 introduced bull zombies, which were no match for our oversized kiwi fruit. That's a sentence that's probably never been said throughout human existence. Here we are, making history in a Plants vs Zombies video. Well, that's probably never been said either. Day 14 had a pretty hefty final wave, but we could castrate it with Shrinking Violet. Coconut cannons on minecarts carried day 15, and just about the most interesting part of day 16 was the slots ad thrusted upon me at the end of the level. After all, 99% of gamblers quit before they win big, just a pro life tip for all of you out there. Okay, in all seriousness, don't gamble, it's actually a serious problem a lot of people have. While picking my plants for day 17, I remembered I had Cherry Bomb. You know, only 17 levels after we unlocked it. I just can't get over how strong Kiwi Beast's plant food ability is though. After so many levels without chickens, day 18 had so many that our homing thistles became practically useless. So naturally, I just spammed lightning reeds everywhere possible. However, even after doing this, lightning reeds struggled to reach the chickens in the top and bottom lanes, making us lose lawnmowers. The ending was really close too. It was a 1v1 between a conehead and our lightning reed. If you've played this game before, which I'm assuming you have because you're watching this video, you know that Conehead wins that matchup by a big margin. So I knew I had to dig up the lightning reed and replace it with something better. But the minecart was in the bottom lane. So I quickly moved it up to the middle lane where we can plant, place the Kiwi Beast, and move it back down to the Conehead. I'm quite proud of myself for pulling that off, even if it's probably not that impressive. For day 19 we had to spend less than 2000 sun, which really wasn't too hard for this challenge since we don't usually spend that much sun anyway because of the whole, 9 total plants thing. Day 21 had a flower line, which was interesting I guess. The beginning of day 23 was actually kind of hard because the flower line combined with the early game coneheads. But after we grew our Kiwi Beast to Nikocado avocado size, it was all over for the zombies. Did I mention Nikocado Beast can even counter chickens flawlessly with its plant food too? I think we all know where those chickens are going. I went into day 24 expecting it to be a hard level, considering it's been brutal in the previous challenge videos we've done. But surprisingly, it was easier than the last level. This is again mostly down to Kiwi Beast's plant food ability. Where has this plant been my whole life? Look at it single-handedly shred through the whole final wave, including all 5 bulls with just 2 plant foods. Day 1 was a breeze, no pun intended. Well, there's no pun to make really because the cold breeze doesn't even show up until day 2. But thankfully we can use hot potato for the first time in any of these challenge runs, provided it's in the one lane we use of course. On day 4 we made use of cherry bomb for basically the first time due to a lot of buckethead spam. Day 6 actually turned out to be really close. Yeah, believe it or not, these levels are getting harder as we speak. Blame the increasing buckethead spam for this, as well as the newly introduced hunter zombies who won't stop making ice. No, not that kind of ice. We ended the level by the skin of our teeth with only a few homing thistles remaining. Also, at one point our Kiwi Beast froze in a funny yet disturbing position. I genuinely don't know what to make of this. Day 7 was more or less the same. With each passing level I started to realize that Kiwi Beast isn't all that good in this world. This is because A, the zombies are getting tankier and there's less frail zombies, and B, the hunters will just freeze them and let the other zombies walk straight past them. Day 9 introduced dodo riders, who we don't really care about because our beloved homing thistle sends them back to extinction pretty efficiently. Day 11 introduced blockhead zombies, and their impact was obvious immediately. This is the first level so far where we've had to seriously rely on our lawnmowers to even get a chance of winning. Luckily we had Charguard to help us out. When blockheads were pushed down to our lane, we could simply knock them back. Day 12 was the last stand level. Thankfully, we had a whole lane this time. I'm not naming names, Pirate Seas Day 22. We still had to sacrifice mowers, but the coconut cannons helped deal with the tanky zombies in the middle lanes. Day 13 had a flower line, which really didn't impact too much because look where it is. The real threat in this level was the Gargantua at the end, which was pushed into the 4th lane by a slider tile, so we could just use a cherry bomb to take care of it. Day 15 was tough since we had to protect pepper poults in the outer lanes, aka the only lanes we can't reach with Kiwi Beast, Cherry Bomb, or Shrinking Violet. And just to put salt in the wound, the game sends blockhead zombies in precisely those 2 lanes. Just a few homing thistles weren't gonna cut it this time. Then I remembered about Shrinking Violet's plant food ability. I tried using it to weaken the bucketheads and blockheads, but the level just doesn't give enough plant food for us to do this efficiently. Sure, it helped, but it felt like there was still a missing piece of the puzzle to our strategy. And that missing piece was none other than Sweet Potato. If you look at this lawn, you can see that the slider tiles redirect every zombie to the 2 lanes that we can't reach, which also has the endangered plants. So by using Sweet Potato in our lane, we could basically stop zombies from flowing to the outer lanes by clustering them together and burning them alive. But as is expected by now if you've watched a lot of my challenge videos, just because I found the best strategy to a level doesn't mean it's easy. Here's a quick montage of deaths that in no way does justice to the whole day I spent grinding this level. I'm not even joking when I say this might be the hardest level so far, even harder than Pirate Seas Day 22. This one is definitely going to end up on the second channel in full if you're interested. And in typical fashion, the next level was laughably easy in comparison. Day 19 was full of pre-planted plants. Even though we couldn't use Hot Potato on them since they were in the other lanes, Homing Thistle's plant food ability could manually break the ice on them. We continued to use Sweet Potato because as it turns out it's really useful for this world, even beyond Day 15. Day 20 really had a thing for troglodyte zombies. The funny thing is that homing thistles don't actually care about the frozen imps and target the troglodytes directly. So at the end of the level we had a whole lane of frozen imps that just spontaneously combusted. Weasel hoarders made their introduction on Day 22. The weasels weren't really a problem because homing thistle can still one-shot them, so they're kind of like slower chickens. Either way, we could just use Shrinking Violet to completely nullify them most of the time, since Drunken Hoarders don't release any weasels. Day 23 was going fine until the final wave when I used plant food on a homing thistle at a really bad time, unleashing the most weasels I've ever seen spawned at once all over the lawn. Somehow we came out the weasel apocalypse unscathed with all of our endangered char guards intact. Day 24 was a produced sun level, so I made some, let's just say, slight modifications to the setup. After day 26 we unlocked Roto. Now technically this could be our next attacking plant, but I don't know, I just wasn't really feeling it. Homing Thistle just feels a lot more strong and makes sense because it costs 100 more suns, so you'd better hope it's good at that price. Day 27 had a pretty intense ending with a full health Gargantua and a multiple blockheads right on our endangered Rotos. So I did the old reliable Sweet Potato Cluster, Shrinking Violet and Cherry Bomb combo. Day 28 was the last stand level and it took a couple attempts because, well, I got to the end of the level on the first attempt but completely forgot the Weasel Hoarders are basically immune to lawnmowers. At the end of the next attempt I made sure to pull them to the middle so I could shrink them before they got up to any funny business again. And since days 29 and 30 are locked and loaded and conveyor belt levels respectively, that's it for Frostbite Caves. Believe it or not, the jump from Frostbite Caves to Lost City was really relieving. Why? No more freezing winds and no more blockheads. It's as simple as that. Having gold tiles is always nice as well. Sadly for Sweet Potato, there's not really much use for her now that the slider tiles are gone, so she's gonna have to be watching from the sidelines from here on out. In other news, Day 2 introduced the Lost Pilot zombies who usually aggravate our homing thistles and die immediately anyway. Day 4 introduced Excavator Zombie. Now time to answer the question you've all been waiting for and I've been dreading to answer. Can Homing Thistle hit them? And the answer is no. Kind of. While Homing Thistle can't hit Excavator from the front, it can hit it from the back like a lot of other plants. Don't get me wrong, they're still annoying, but we can definitely handle them. On day 6 I found out that Excavator Zombie is even immune to Homing Thistle's plant food ability from the front. What would often happen is one Excavator would tank all the missiles and protect the rest of the zombies until it got far enough into the lawn that our Homing Thistles can hit it from behind. Do you think this was too much plant food? Nah. On day 10 I messed around with the Endurian, but it really wasn't doing it for me. I swear if Endurian just had a little more health, it would actually be a decent plant. Day 11 went by without any problems. The new bug zombies were kind of annoying but manageable with our homing thistles. For day 12 we had to produce 5,000 sun. This sounded like a lot at first, but we had sun tiles, so I thought it would be fine. The level was going alright until randomly 20 seconds into the level they sent a Gargantua. Okay, shouldn't be too much of an issue, it's just a Gargantua, right? Well, remember that we need to produce a bunch of sun as well. What ended up happening was I was forced to dig up all the sunflowers to put down homing thistles to beat the Gargantua. And for the cherry on top, the Gargantua was on their outer lane, so we couldn't get it with Shrinking Violet. Okay, so one Gargantua, that's not too much of an inconvenience. We can always build our twin sunflowers back up. Nope. The level then spawns 2 more Gargantuas. We ended up losing because between the 3 Gargantuas in this level, I couldn't keep enough twin sunflowers on the lawn over homing thistles to meet the sun goal. On the second attempt, I decided to re-strategize and move to plan B since things clearly weren't working. What was plan B? Trying to beat the level the exact same way as before like an idiot. So I tried plan C, which was to do what most people do on these levels and wait until the final wave to stall the last zombie with walnuts until we could get enough sun. This plan would have worked if the final wave actually spawned a zombie in the middle lane. So it was time for plan D, which was plan C but in the top lane. And this time we actually won. That level should not have taken as long as it did. Day 15 looked harder than it really was. And that was mostly down to the gluttonous amount of plant food that we were given. Day 17 threw a curveball in the form of importer zombies. Homing thistles don't target the tents while there are other zombies on the lawn, so they just leave them there to spawn zombies perpetually. But a bit of plant food does the trick. Day 19 was heavy with bug zombies, who I really think Shrinking Violet should eliminate considering she gets rid of imps, which are a similar size to bugs. But the level was fine anyway. Day 20 was really annoying though. The issues I've been talking about for both bugs and importers were compounded together. Bug zombies distracted our homing thistles, which allowed the importers to creep far enough to put their tents, which again, our homing thistles don't bother destroying. All of which culminated in this ending where I thought I'd beat the level, but the zombies from the tents slowly edged our death until a headless zombie ended our suffering. We tried again and I moved our setup to the bottom lane simply because nearly all of the outer lanes were gold tiles. I don't know why I didn't do that to begin with, to be honest. Also, an importer put down his tent and then reappeared to play his death animation. I just kind of found that funny. Day 23 was chaotic to say the least. Relic hunters showed up for the first time, which was not a pleasant surprise since they're tanky and good at distracting our homing thistles. We had so many zombies flooding the lawn that I decided to shrink them all with Shrinking Violet's plant food. The only problem was that the shrunken zombies sometimes have really janky hitboxes, and this causes the missiles to take 3 to 5 business days to actually hit them instead of circling around aimlessly. They say that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I must have been clinically insane when I tried to do the same thing with Shrinking Violet again on the next few attempts. And the missiles were going just as insane as I was trying to hit the tiny zombies. And what do you know, in the next attempt I refrained from using Shrinking Violet and we actually won. But it was still extremely close, we only had 1 lawnmower left. Often in these challenges, the amount of remaining lawnmowers is a good indicator of how hard the levels are getting. And if this is an accurate representation, I don't know what is. And then in the very next level, we had our lawnmowers effectively stripped away from us because of flower lines. Man, I hate these flowers sometimes. On about the 4th attempt, the homing thistles actually caused us to lose because of this absolute stupidity you're seeing right now. After a few more attempts, I realized I could avoid that mistake by just digging up all the homing thistles and letting the bugs fly over the flowers, then replanting the homing thistles. But this was far from ideal since it left us with basically no homing thistles on the final wave. But beating the level this way was definitely possible since there were only a few zombies left when we lost. But then after a few more attempts I realized that all of that was unnecessary because I could just be more precise and optimal with homing thistle, cherry bomb and Shrinking Violet placements. I eventually got all of those down consistently, which led to winning the level, finally. Day 25 was one of those levels where it's mostly given plants. However, like in the peashooter challenge, I decided to include these levels in the challenge since we can still bring our key players, homing thistle and cherry bomb. Even with only those 2 plants on our side, this level was leagues easier than the last. The same could be said about day 26. Turquoise skull zombies were featured on day 27, but they weren't too much of an issue. We just had to make sure we planted our homing thistles at the back and the sunflowers closer up front. Either way, they were effectively normal zombies 4/5 of the time. The level still took many attempts, but at this point of the game, that's a given. Day 29 was going really well compared to the past few levels, but I let my guard down and a Gargantua snuck through the top lane of the final wave. Our next attempt was going better until the stupid homing thistles targeted the Gargantua on the bottom lane, which we actually had a lawnmower in, causing us to lose to the one in the top lane again. Nice one, idiots. To make sure that didn't happen again, I made sure we didn't lose our top lane lawnmower, but in the process we lost the bottom lane mower. And now the homing thistles decided to target the top one. I was just lost for words staring at my screen as I got absolutely trolled and bullied by fictional thistles with faces. Then on the next go, both of the Gargantuas got through. I was starting to question if the level would even be possible at this point. And that's not something I thought I would consider in the Lost City, which is usually an easy world. But man, not even the sun tiles could help us out in some of these later levels. It was that bad. Anyway, back to day 29. I got another promising run and well, I'll just show you what happened. I'm honestly convinced these homing thistles hate me. They probably have good reason to anyway, since I've been forcing them to fight zombies over and over again, hour after hour. Plants are kinda like Pokemon in that aspect. We as players are just enslaving them and their life's only purpose is to engage in combat and die protecting us while we sit back and relax. That sounds like a red-pilled description of a 9 to 5 hierarchy too. On the next attempt, the homing thistles finally targeted the right gargantua, but there were too many zombies for it to matter anyway. After hours of attempts, we finally got one where the final wave had lawnmowers in every lane, so it didn't matter what the homing thistles wanted to do. Take that, homing thistles. After all those ridiculous levels, day 30 turned out to be really easy. We beat it on our first attempt. For a lot of these worlds, it seems like the difficulty spikes in the late 20s levels while the 30s levels are the complete opposite. And that wraps up Lost City since the last 2 levels are given plants levels. Day 1 was pretty uneventful. The power tiles gimmick might be useful in some levels, but most levels will be like this one where there's only one power tile in our lane, which is literally useless. Shield zombies showed up on day 2. They were kind of annoying since they block homing thistles shots, but we could cherry bomb them most of the time. At the end of day 3 we unlocked Blover, who will be really useful for this world. That's because Blover can hit every lane despite only being planted in one. I wish the devs didn't mess up the world order so we could have had Blover in Lost City, but we managed even with all the annoying bug zombies. Day 4 was a sun bombs level which I beat with only 2 jalapenos in the bottom lane. I'm certain this level could be possible without planning anything though. Day 5 was easy since the game showered us in plant food, while Day 7 showcased how good Blover is for this world. Not only does it wipe out all the jetpacks, but also the imp swarms as they drop from the sky. In Day 9 we weren't allowed more than 15 plants, which is impossible for us anyway since we only have 9 tiles to work with. I discovered that shrunken shield zombies still have a massive 3-lane shield. I would have assumed the shield would shrink with a zombie, but apparently not. Day 10 introduced Discotrons, which are usually one of the more difficult zombies in challenge runs of this game, but since we actually have Blover this time, they were easy to handle. Day 11 was the last stand level, which wasn't too bad because again, most of the threatening zombies we could just Blover away. We still had to rely heavily on our lawnmowers to win though. Day 12 was easy, but Day 13 brought football mechs, which were a huge pain. You can probably tell why just by looking at our setup, which looks like something a football mech could only dream of. Additionally, these guys can tank a whole cherry bomb. We made it through the level quite easily, but I just know these guys are going to be annoying later on. Day 14 was easy, again mostly because there were so many jetpacks we could just blow away. Day 15 was easy, unlike Day 18 where we lost at first because of the high sun goal and limited space we had to plant sunflowers. But by playing the level more slowly and putting more emphasis on twin sunflowers, we managed to pull through. Day 19 was another sun bombs level, and for once we actually had more than one power tile of the same color in our lane. That made the level probably way too easy though. Day 20 looked really bad initially. That's because there was an endangered starfruit in every single lane and they were dangerously far to the right. Clearly our old strategy wasn't going to suffice. We had to somehow protect every lane from zombies. Then it clicked. Infinite. We unlocked Infinite somewhere during Far Future and I didn't even notice, which is a shame because this guy's plant food is really great for this challenge. I mean, just look at this. We managed to succeed by using Blover on every imp swarm and keeping Infinite handy. Day 21 was another sun production level, so we made use of the 2 red power tiles in our lane to double our twin sunflower plant foods. There were also a lot of Discotrons, but we could just cherry bomb them before they became a problem since they're all in the middle 3 lanes. Day 22 was the last stand level, so we had to get creative with our setup. At first I tried an ordinary mix of homing thistle and coconut cannon, but that didn't work out. I then thought of using sweet potato to group the middle 3 lanes zombies together to increase the effectiveness of our coconut cannons, which worked well. On the final wave we used the mower launch ability that we unlocked recently to destroy the Gargantua Prime, which was pulled into our lane by sweet potato. Homing Thistle then cleaned up the leftover jetpacks and coneheads. Barely. Day 23 was a fairly basic level, we just had to be careful with our sun usage since there was a sun limit. Day 24 was a sun bombs level, which was just as easy as the previous one. And that's Far Future complete since Day 25 is the Zomboss conveyor level. This world went by relatively smoothly and I just hope the next one does as well, which might be a tall order as it's none other than Dark Ages. This world has a gruesome track record in my challenge videos. In both the 1 Seeds Hot series and the peashooter series, we had to cut our losses in this world since we couldn't produce any sun. This is obviously a problem because this is the one world where sun doesn't fall naturally. However, as long as they're planted in our lane, we can finally use sun producers this time around. But there will be some other problematic parts of this world that we'll get to soon. Night 1 was a breeze since we enlisted Kiwi Beast once again since the zombies in the level were no stronger than coneheads. This resulted in some good old fashioned carnage that we haven't seen since the last video. We actually had lost our first attempt at night 2, losing the second level of a world, which I don't think has happened so far in this run. I realized the reason why we lost was because when the game auto-selected Sunshroom and Puffshroom into our seed deck, it kicked out Kiwi Beast. So on the next attempt I promptly brought back Kiwi Beast and tore the zombies to bits. Night 3 was similar. It's just amazing how Kiwi Beast can hit all 5 lanes in its final form and its plant food just straight up deletes everything. Then there was Night 5. Can you guess what the problem is here? Homing Thistle can't hit Jester zombies, and when I say it can't, I mean it can't. It can't hit them from the back, it can't hit them from the front, not even its plant food missiles can hit them. In other words, we're screwed. Or are we? Well, we still have Kiwi Beast, so I tried Kiwi Beast and well, it worked. By chaining plant foods on Kiwi Beast every wave, we just demolished the whole level, not just the Jesters. But using Kiwi Beast to beat Jesters is far from a perfect strategy. The Jesters have to be in the same lane as the Kiwi Beast, or else we have to use plant food to deal with them. This is because Jesters for some reason are tankier than your typical zombies, so the Kiwi Beast's normal splash damage doesn't cut it. Night 6 was the last stand level, so I placed the usual homing thistles in Kiwi Beast, but I also planted Snapdragons as a kind of backup plan for the Jesters. This worked very efficiently. I also discovered something big in this level. Something I would have never thought of before. When new gravestones spawn on the same tile as one of our plants, the plant will be pushed back into a nearby tile to make room for the gravestone. So we could actually get a Kiwi Beast in the second lane by manipulating this game mechanic. While this might have been a gimmicky technique, I still held onto it in my memory in case we could use it later. Night 7 gave us a break from Jesters, instead having us fight night zombies who are no less vulnerable to our big maniacal kiwi fruits bouncing from side to side. Day 9 was pretty tough. It took a few attempts because of Jester zombies being Jester zombies, but by exclusively using our plant food on Jesters with Kiwi Beasts, we eventually beat the level. I always wonder every time I play through this world, what's in those potions? Is it fentanyl? Well, that would explain why the zombies look so slouched and disgruntled. Night 11 flew straight at us with a bunch of Jesters, but the level also gave us a bunch of plant food, so you know exactly how that went down. There was also some newly introduced wizard zombies who weren't all that bad to be honest. We could just homing thistle them, blow them up, or Kiwi Beast them. Night 12 was an endangered plants level which, much like Far Future Day 20, had a whole column of endangered plants for us to defend. However, we could just use plant food on Infinite to protect all the puffshrooms. Apart from that, this level was just more Kiwi Beast plant fooding. Night 14 was a bit of a problem. We had to produce sun by destroying sun gravestones that spawned throughout the level. That was easy enough with Kiwi Beast to splash in other lanes. But this alone wasn't enough to give us enough sun to win. We also had to use sunbeans. The problem is we only have one lane to plant sunbeans in. So what we had to do was make sure we sunbeamed every single zombie that entered our lane before we killed them to just barely meet the sun quota after we sunbeamed the last zombie. If the game didn't send a night zombie on a final wave, this level would have straight up been impossible. Night 15 had an absolutely mental final wave that had me stumped for a few attempts. I genuinely didn't think I could beat it. But then I realized if I held on to all my lawnmowers until the final wave, then I didn't have to beat it. The lawnmowers could do it for me. Night 16 introduces zombie kings who aren't that bad of a problem because we have magnet shroom, and of course, no one is safe from the wrath of our Kiwi Beasts. Night 17 was another evil potions level and it was even harder than the last. On this attempt, some really weird chain of events occurred so that we had a sheep on top of a gravestone with a tile in front that I couldn't place anything on. This actually caused us to lose since I couldn't place a cherry bomb on the wizard and jester. After watching back the footage, I'm pretty sure this happened because the game spawned the gravestone where the sheep was, but the gravestone didn't recognize the sheep as a sheep, but rather the Kiwi Beast that was previously there. So the game thought that a Kiwi Beast was moved one tile ahead to make way for the gravestone when what actually happened was the gravestone spawned on the same tile as the sheep. So an invisible plant resulting from the game's confusion blocked us from placing our cherry bomb on the tile in front. This game, man. This level turned out to be really tough. The waves just flood you with knights, jesters, wizards, and kings, literally every Dark Ages threat. But after having that weird glitch happen to me, I was inspired. I noticed that gravestones repetitively and exclusively spawned in the middle column. So by planting a plant on either side of the middle tile on our row, we could ensure that whatever plant we placed in the middle would be bounced off to the lane above or below when the next set of gravestones spawned there. By repeating this over the course of the level, we managed to spread a Kiwi Beast army across 4 of the 5 lanes of the lawn. These Kiwi Beasts shut down all of the threats I mentioned earlier simply because of the sheer number of them. This doesn't look like it should be possible in a challenge where we can only use one lane, but it most certainly is by abusing game mechanics. And finally for Dark Ages, we have Night 19. And for once, the final level in the world actually lives up to its status. This one was pretty hard. We had to protect 3 endangered magnet shrooms, of which only one was in the 3-lane range where we can actually do anything. So we used the old infinite trick and with a lot of trial and error we managed to find the right Kiwi Beast timings and sunshroom spamming extent to last us through the level. Thankfully, the king zombies were basically nullified by our magnet shrooms. As usual with these save our seeds levels, there were a few moments where the zombies got a little too close for comfort, or even got a cheeky taste of our endangered plants. And that's it for Dark Ages. Yes, Dark Ages is actually possible in this challenge. Finally a challenge where this world doesn't end our run, but will Neon Mixtape Tour be possible? There's only one way to find out. Day 1 was easy as expected. I can't describe how good it felt to not have to worry about jesters anymore. Fatbeat was the star of the show in Day 2. Theoretically it could be useful here, but it's just so bad that I can't bring myself to use it, even for this challenge. Punk zombies were new to this level too, but there weren't enough of them to be an issue. But you can probably guess why they will definitely be an issue for us later in a very similar way to football mechs. Day 4 was such an easy level that I forgot to write down any notes for it. At least, that's what I'm assuming because again, I forgot to write anything down. Day 5 was an endangered plants level with a bunch of punk zombies. This would be a problem if Infinite's plant food barrier didn't stop the punk zombies dead in their tracks. Day 7 was very full on, and the first level where the pace was fast enough for the punk zombies to actually become a problem. Why are they a problem? For the same reason as football mechs. Our most frontmost plants get booted into non-existence. This level also had the new glitter zombies who steamroll any plant in front of them. These zombies combined were spammed enough to make our Kiwi Beasts useless in this level. Given how much Kiwi Beast has been carrying us lately, this is a big issue. There are also a lot of bucketheads overwhelming our limited homing thistles. But then I remembered that we have a certain magnetic plant from Dark Ages that can reach all 5 lanes. That's right, it's time to take some shrooms into this level. Magnet shrooms. In case you didn't know, these guys will just tear the heads right off any punk zombies. So this means Magnet Shroom nullifies 2 of the 3 zombies I mentioned previously. That was enough to make the level doable. Not easy, but possible nonetheless. I also used a combination of Sweet Potato and Hurricane to attract zombies to our lane and then push them back to help reduce the load on our homing thistles. This was also a good way of clumping the glitter and buckethead zombies together so we could cherry bomb them. This way we also got a lot of value out of our Hurricane since we're effectively hurricaning 3 lanes instead of 1 thanks to Sweet Potato. For some reason Day 8 was a lot easier than Day 7. We used the same combos and strategies here for an easy win. I also realized one plant food on Magnet Shroom could wipe out all of the punks on the screen. At that point, why don't the punk zombies just take out their piercings? Day 12 was more or less the same as Day 7 but with a Gargantua at the end. And yes, there were 4 locked and loaded levels or conveyor belt levels between Day 8 and Day 12. Day 13 was just an absolute mess, just everything everywhere all at once. I legitimately thought this level would be the end of the run. But after an hour of trying to beat the level and only being able to get to the final wave, I realized I could just cheese the level by using plant food we were given on Time Warp and stalling out the zombies until we could final wave mower them. Day 15 was really painful for many reasons, all of which revolved around our endangered fat beats being tortured in various ways, including but not limited to microphones being swung at them, being crushed by rollerblades, and being eaten alive. Also, there was an attempt where I used plant food on an Infinite and it just didn't work. Either way, Infinite's plant food ability didn't really help us win here despite our endangered plants because the MC zombies and glitter zombies insta-kill the shield anyway. Although this level took many attempts to beat, I figured out that the key to win was to spam as many magnet shrooms as possible. Divide the zombies from their armor, then conquer. Day 17 on the other hand was a breeze and our magnet shrooms absolutely obliterated Day 18, which was largely composed of punks and bucketheads. Day 20 was just as easy, as was Day 21, where we had some gargantuan problems on the final wave before I remembered Shrinking Violet exists. Day 23 and 24 were straightforward since they went easy on us to introduce the arcade zombies. Days 25 and 26 were also first attempt victories. This run of levels was really confusing to me since Neon Mixtape Tour is usually a pretty rough world. Day 28 was yet another extremely easy level that we beat first try. I couldn't really pin down exactly why this was the case. I think it may just be because of Magnet Shroom, but I don't know for certain. Day 29 was actually a bit of a step up, finally. But it wasn't because of the new boombox zombies, but rather the hair metal Gargantua who snipes our plants across the whole lawn. I don't care what you say, this right here is the most annoying Gargantua. On about the 5th attempt, we lost by 1 basic zombie. That one hurt, not gonna lie. We did it on the next attempt though. Day 30 was the last level in Neon Mixtape Tour for this challenge, and it was immediately apparent that the previous levels had lulled me into a false sense of security. This level was brutal. However, there wasn't anything particular about this level we had to watch out for. It was just a full-on dialed up to 11 level with all of the world zombies. But with that being said, it only took about half an hour to grind this one out. The hardest part was getting a good setup into the final wave where 2 Gargantuas spawned, one of which is out of our shrinking and cherry bombing range. But with just enough homing thistles down, we could clean the wave up. Barely though. Some of you were saying in the last video that I depend on homing thistle too much for this challenge, so for this world I decided I'd see how far I could get without using homing thistle. Day 1 was possible by slowly letting the zombies clump up in the middle lane with sweet potato, then unleashing them on our kiwi beast so that they could get damaged to full size. Then we just repeated that multiple times by planting a new kiwi beast in front of the old kiwi beast to grow more and more. In case you didn't know, full-size kiwi beasts hit all 5 lanes, so we could do this to get around the homing thistle's absence. Whenever a tanky zombie on the top or bottom lane got through, we could just time warp them back to the start to walk through death row once more. However, nothing about day 1 was really Jurassic, it was just a basic old marsh. The Jurassic part of Jurassic Marsh really kicked in on day 2, introducing the raptors. Yet somehow our animated fruits were more powerful than actual dinosaurs. Maybe we finally do know what really made them extinct. We used the same strategy again in day 4, but with a powered infinite as well, to really make sure the zombies never made it past the kiwi fruit conga line of destruction, even with raptors booting them along. In day 5 we managed to pile up an even heavier arsenal of kiwi beasts. If you're wondering why Kiwi Beast is so great in this world, it's because unlike Neon Mixtape Tour, the majority of this world's zombies kill it by biting it. In fact, the only zombie in this world that doesn't is the Gargantua. So basically we just came from a world where Kiwi Beast was useless because everything would insta-kill it before it could grow up, to a world where basically every zombie is forced to bite it until it grows to queso size. Get him out of here! You're done! Stegosauruses made their way into day 6, upping the difficulty a smidge. We had a really good run until one fossil head survived with literally one Kiwi Beast hit of health left. This just goes to show that while Kiwi Beasts are doing the job on their own for now, they're far from a reliable defense without homing thistle to pick off the leftovers. But in the very next attempt, I made sure I could keep the top lane lawnmower until the end of the level so I could mow his ass down. Day 8 was pretty good, but again a zombie slipped through the top lane. However, I used Time Warp to send him back to the front of the lawn. We unlocked Time Warp in the last world and it's proving really useful now. This is because it can send the whole lawn of zombies back to the beginning, despite only being planted in our one lane, kind of like Blover. Its ability is especially useful here because the dinosaurs keep pushing zombies right up the lawn and past our Kiwi Beasts. Pterodactyls appeared on day 10, but they're kind of pointless in this challenge because 80% of the time they actually help us by turning zombies backwards in other lanes so they pose no threat. But to prepare for that 20% of pterodactyl that spawn in our lane, I brought Hurricane to push zombies back when they dropped off. But the level was so easy that we never even had to do this. We swept through the next 5 levels with no problems. On day 18 we encountered some, minor issues. The new T-Rexes shook up things more than all of the other dinosaurs combined. That's because, well, look at this mess. I found that using Hurricane to counter the pterodactyls was a better idea on paper because it also pushes back all the zombies in our lane that we actually want to reach a Kiwi Beast so they can bite them to let them grow. But with Hurricane the Kiwi Beast wouldn't grow because we kept shoving all the zombies away from them. So I switched Hurricane for Perfume Shroom, which deals with the pterodactyl without affecting the zombies. But even this wasn't cutting it. So we had to call in Homing Thistle for the first time in this world. I know, I folded, but I think we did pretty well all things considered, going a little over halfway through Jurassic Marsh with no Homing Thistle at all. But even after we brought back Homing Thistle, the level was seeming damn near impossible. I realized that the main problem was that, believe it or not, we actually didn't have enough seed slots. And that's coming from the guy who's played through the whole game with only one seed slot. The level would have been a lot easier with Sweet Potato and Cherry Bomb, but every single other plant we were using was essential, so we had to sacrifice Sweet Potato. Or did we? I didn't actually know this, but we can rent an extra seed slot for only a few coins. This doesn't go against any rule we have, and let's be honest, that many coins is basically nothing, even in a free-to-play run. With the extra seed slot, the level was still extremely difficult, but possible in the end. T-Rexes are definitely going to be a pain in most levels from here on out. On day 20, I realized if you use the button to select the same plant lineup as the last level, you get the extra seed slot for free without having to rent it. I'm pretty sure PopCap didn't intend this, so don't tell them about my in-game tax evasion. A quick update from future Koala here though, so I tried recreating this bug later in the run and for some reason it just wasn't working. So I have no idea why it only worked here, but anyway, let's continue. At the end of the level I was playing as normal when all of a sudden we lost out of nowhere. I was so confused because we had all 5 lawnmowers, so there was no way I could lose so suddenly, unless a zombie jumped over the mower or something. So I watched back the footage and I was just blind for some reason. I couldn't see the clear absence of a mower in the bottom lane. So on the next attempt, I made sure I kept an eye on the lawnmowers. But by doing so, I completely forgot to produce enough sun since this level has a 2000 sun quota. Trying to beat this fairly straightforward level was like pulling teeth because of my inability to multitask. Third time's a charm though. But it nearly wasn't, because a Gargantua spawned in a lane with no mower. But the Stegosaurus actually clutched up and flung it to a lane where there was a mower. So far those Stegosauruses have actually been helping us way more than they've been hindering us. Day 21 had a bunch of dinosaurs everywhere, and again, the Stegosaurus actually saved us by flinging all the outer lane zombies into the middle lane so we could cherry bomb them all. Forget Homing Thistle and Kiwi Beast, Stegosaurus is the real MVP of the run. We beat the last stand level, day 22, on the first try with this mess of a setup that somehow worked. We unlocked Primal Potato Mine on day 23. I thought its plant food ability would be really broken for this challenge since it can clone itself and fling the clones to other lanes, but it's extremely reliant on the best two features of game design: RNG and luck. Don't get me wrong, it's still good, but not as overpowered as I was hoping. It took numerous attempts to beat day 24 because the T-Rexes kept making the bully zombies hobble along faster, but I just used plant food exclusively on Infinite to stop this. Day 25 introduced the Ankylosaurus, and I thought the T-Rex was bad. This guy is a whole new level of ridiculous. Just watch what happens to the first zombie of this level. There's actually nothing we can even do about that except sacrifice our mower. I tried this level using our normal strategy for about an hour with no luck, so I began changing up our plant selection. Due to the really fast-paced nature of the level, Twin Sunflower is just too slow and unnecessary to justify using. So we swapped it out for Primal Sunflower, which worked a lot better. This level was so chaotic that I need to take you step by step, wave by wave, so allow me to break it down for you once again. Okay, for real though, it would take 10 whole minutes to explain how I beat this one, so instead I'll just bring up the key points. First, sweet potato zombies in the middle where the raptors can't kick them, sacrifice some mowers and place a time warp. Then we had to place plant food on a primal potato mine and pray that one of the clones landed on this exact tile down here. If it didn't land on that one individual tile, we had to reset the level and try again. Trust me, this happened a lot. After this, there were a lot more precise placements and strategies which, combined with hours of attempts, let us finally beat the level. If you want to see exactly how I did it, I'll be uploading the full run on my second channel, where I upload full unedited runs of particularly difficult levels from my main channel challenge videos. If you want to go watch that now, there'll probably be a little card that pops up around now and a big arrow on screen pointing to it. Wow, isn't that magical? But if you click on that card, just remember what'll be waiting for you outside your doorstep if you don't come back and watch the rest of this video afterwards. Oddly enough, day 26 was basically an easier day 25. The mold colonies didn't change anything because our homing thistles don't care about them at all. Just like in the last level, Primal Potato Mine's plant food ability was super useful. Days 27 and 28 were both first try victories. Day 28 in particular was like an easier day 25, so my muscle memory kicked in with the strats and tech of that level. Day 30 was the last level for the world, and it was just as easy. Even though there were a lot of gargantuas, pulling zombies with sweet potato to clump them together for Primal Potato Mine was just too good of a strategy. There were some moments where the game tried to get us with T-Rex boosted gargantuas, so I pulled the gargantuas to the middle with sweet potatoes so the T-Rexes were left to make fools of themselves. Nice try, Jurassic Marsh, we avoided your trickery this time around. But will Big Wave Beach also be possible? Let's find out. And now we arrive at the notoriously difficult Big Wave Beach, which also happens to be Homing Thistle's home world. I bet he's been waiting a long time for this. The first 3 levels were all very ordinary with our old reliable strategy and Magnet Shroom added on for extra buckethead protection. But there will be a plant that we unlock in this world that may change things up dramatically. At long last, we can finally use Lily Pad in one of these challenges, so that's definitely a relief. But this comes at a cost of Primal Potato Mine, which will be nearly useless here since it can't be planted on water or lily pads. Snorkeler zombies emerged in day 6, but our homing thistles can surprisingly hit them when they're submerged. This plant is the gift that keeps on giving. Unless the opponent is Jester or Excavator, of course. And if you thought we'd seen the last of those 2 zombies in part 2, then you're in for a rude awakening later in this video. Day 7 was completely submerged underwater, but that wasn't too much of a problem since, again, we can use lily pads and our homing thistles hard counter snorkelers. Kiwi beasts also hit the snorkelers underwater, so I knew they weren't going to be a problem at all in this run. The same reasons made day 9 just as easy despite also being completely submerged apart from the mold colony. Day 11 featured surfer zombies who weren't a real threat either because they got absolutely annihilated by all of our homing thistles the moment they got past our kiwi beasts. If they even did get past our kiwi beasts, that is, which was highly unlikely. Day 12 was the last stand level where kiwi beasts just absolutely carried. We lost some lawnmowers to a rapid onslaught of surfers halfway through day 13, but the rest of the level was a piece of cake. We started out very strong on day 15. Okay, but on the next attempt we basically won, but the potato mines decided to blow up some of the last zombies in the level. The next time around I used time warp to solve that issue. And at last, the dreaded octo zombies debuted on day 17, but there were only a few of them scattered across the level, so Kiwi Beast could handle them well. But I just knew they were going to start spamming them a lot later in this world. Day 19 was easy because, again, the devs hadn't got trigger happy with the octopi yet. However, day 20 turned out kind of hard. We edged the gargantua at the end for what felt like 20 minutes, but it still somehow got through. After building up more homing thistles in the next attempt, we won. Fisherman zombies were introduced in day 22. This is usually the part of the game where I talk about why this guy will be such a pain in the ass, but for this challenge, Fisherman zombie isn't that bad. No, it's not opposite day, you heard me right. Fisherman isn't hard. Why? Well, every fisherman that spawns outside our lane is useless. Since we can't plant anything in those lanes, those fishermen kinda just sit there waiting to die. But in the 1 in 5 chance that the fisherman shows up in our lane, we can just insta-kill it with Tangle Kelp most of the time. At least one of the 2 big wave bitches is kind of handleable in this challenge. Day 23 was a save our seeds level, and it's usually a lot harder, but because of what I just said 5 seconds ago, the level was possible with ease. But playtime's over now because day 25 was absolute mayhem. The level's fine until we get to the end where there's this one completely insufferable low tide that spawns a bunch of zombies right in the middle of the lawn, including a whole gargantua, and on top of that you can't spend more than 3,000 sun. So a lot of the time I'd get up to this low tide and then blow a bunch of sun trying to deal with all the chaos, only to go over the sun limit anyway. Before this level it was all sunshine and rainbows, but now this is the big wave beach I remember, that's for sure. But I eventually figured out that the trick to beat this one was to spend all 3,000 sun solely defending octo zombies, then plant homing thistles to just last long enough until the final wave. Then we could just barely let all of the lawnmowers mow down the remaining zombies. I'm not gonna lie, this level had me nervous for what was coming next. But my fears were tempered in day 27, which was a game changer. And for once, that isn't because of the zombies, but rather the plants. Or should I say plant, because that plant is Banana Launcher. Remember how I said there would be a plant in this world that mixes things up? Yeah, here it is. Banana Launcher is great for countering the octo zombies, who are the one lot of zombies screwing us up right now. With Banana Launcher we can directly eliminate them no matter where they are on the lawn. This wasn't possible with homing thistle since octo zombies are slower than all the other zombies, which let them hide behind those other zombies and slowly octopus all of our plants. But now that we had Banana Launcher, I could both attack the octo zombies directly at the source and destroy the squids themselves on command, both impossible tasks with homing thistle. So popping down 1 or 2 Banana Launchers in our lane made this level a breeze, since we finally had some sort of control over both of this world's hell spawns. Should I even say world though? This place has become more like an institution at this point. Even with all of what I just said about being on top of the octo zombies and fisherman zombies, day 28 still managed to be a nightmare. That's probably because this is considered as one of the hardest levels, if not the hardest level in Plants vs Zombies 2. And we're beating it with 1 lane. Yay! In case you've never had the opportunity to get fondled by this level, the main challenge here is that we can't lose more than 5 plants, including lily pads. This is excruciatingly harsh given that they send a lot of fishermen and gargantuas throughout the level. Despite all of this, I could actually make it to the last wave fairly consistently. But the final wave looks like this. Yeah, no, this is just pure evil. A big issue here is that Kiwi Beast could rip up this low tide with some plant food, but in doing so, we have to create more lily pads, since using plant food on Kiwi Beast also plant foods a lily pad underneath it, and those extra spawned lily pads could easily get destroyed by zombies since they're so far up the lawn. I mean, look at where they spawn because of this. That far up the lawn and they're basically asking to be eaten or hooked up. This caused us to lose multiple times. However, I realized that if I could spam 2 Kiwi Beast plant foods in quick succession, we could avoid this problem since the zombies get killed before they can kill the lily pads. The only zombies that were tanky enough to survive a double Kiwi Beast pounding were then cleaned up by the lawnmowers. So we could just barely beat this level. Honestly, when I first tried this one, I fully believed it would be the first impossible level. But surprisingly, we're yet to face an impossible level. Since day 29 and day 30 were both oddly easy, that stands true for all of Big Wave Beach. I can't believe all of Jurassic Marsh and Big Wave Beach were possible, but we're on the home stretch now and all we've got left is modern day, and this challenge could be 100% successful. So let's get into it right now. Day 1 was really easy, which is no surprise. But I also discovered that the same strategy to move plants to other lanes, which was possible in Dark Ages, is also possible in this world, except with portal spawns instead of gravestone spawns. The portal here spawned on the same tile as our twin sunflower, which pushed it up by one lane. This also happened to our magnet shroom on day 2. I didn't really know if it would be useful in the grand scheme of things though, because portals spawn far less in this world than gravestones spawn in Dark Ages. We had no problems beating day 4, but day 5 was a little tough because of the new newspaper zombies. But I've gotten through worlds like Neon Mixtape Tour, Jurassic Marsh and Big Wave Beach. Some old guy holding a newspaper upside down isn't gonna stop me. I used Time Warp to stall out the final wave to meet the sun goal on day 6. I also found out that sheep still produce sun on sun tiles. I've probably played through this whole game 10 times by now across 11 years, and yet there's always something I learn in each playthrough. Day 7 was a whole lot of fun, as you can see by this wonderful zombie lineup. And guess who decided to make a return? The Dark Ages portals were really messing us up thanks to these jesters. I thought I'd never have to see their faces again, but to counter them we could just use Kiwi Beast and Banana Launcher without Homing Thistle. We were having some Discotron problems in day 10, so I brought back Blover, which beat the level with the help of Final Wave lawnmowers as usual. Day 11 was easy, but day 12 definitely wasn't. Dinosaurs, chickens, excavators, all of my past trauma flooded back at me as I tried to ward off these pesky fellas that I thought I'd never have to deal with again. We eventually got on a run which was extraordinarily close, but I time warped just a millisecond too late to catch a Gargantua. The next time around we burned him to a crisp with Lightning Reed's plant food though. Day 15 assaulted us with balloon zombies, imp cannons and relic hunters all at the same time. But literally all of these zombies we could handle with Blover, so I did exactly that. The start of Modern Day Part 2 was really easy for some reason. We flew through days 17, 18 and 20 with no issues. Day 21 was going just as easily as the other levels, until an octo zombie spawned from a Big Wave Beach portal and caused us to lose at the last second. So I thought, well, second try and we'll get it, right? But I was far from right. Needless to say, we were having some all-star problems. These guys charge straight down the lawn, and if they're not in our lane, there isn't much we can do about them apart from trying to hit them with our plant's various plant food abilities. But the level just sends them over and over and over again in the same 2 lanes until they break through to our house. I realized that by getting very lucky with Primal Potato Mine plant foods, we could get them to land in front of the all-stars. So after some hours of grinding the level over and over and over again until we got all the right Primal Potato Mine landing positions, we were able to clear the level. Day 23 was a smooth victory, but one newspaper zombie slipped through on day 24. We beat it on the next attempt though. Day 26 also took a few attempts, this time for the same reason as day 21, the All-Stars. I just repeated the level until we got the right Primal Potato Mine landings. Wizards and the Produce Sun criteria combined on day 28 for a pretty fun challenge. This is because it's like a tug of war between you planting sunflowers and your wizards turning them to sheep. We won just by blowing up as many wizards as possible and spamming as many twin sunflowers as possible. I thought day 29 would be really bad because it had dinosaurs, but I kid you not, the only dinosaur that appeared in the whole level was this raptor in the middle lane here. And now we reach the final level, or the final boss fight if you will. What's the boss that we fight? These stupid, wretched, annoying little flowers. I tried beating this level with our regular strategy, but that was quite obviously not going to work. So then I tried using Infinite's plant food to hold off the zombies from the flowers. But amongst all the bucketheads, football zombies, and even gargantuas, this strategy was doomed from the very beginning. One thing to note about this level was the one minecart. If you remember back to the first episode, we can plan on minecarts as long as they're in our lane initially, but after that we can move the minecart around freely. I decided to try using Squash, who's never seen the light of day in this challenge. Why would I do that? Well, Squash has just enough range to launch himself at the zombies before they cross our flowers, or while they're trying to eat our Infinite's barrier. So by planting a Squash on the minecart, we could move it anywhere to eliminate whichever zombie was next. But as the level ramped up, one Squash at a time was sadly nowhere near enough. It was better late than never, Squash. So what now? Honestly, I was out of ideas. But I couldn't give up on the very last level of the challenge, that just wasn't an option. We'd come all of this way, hundreds of levels, months of grinding. I wasn't going to let this challenge end like that. So since I couldn't beat the level, I decided to see if any of you guys could. I made a community post challenging all of you to beat this level with the rules of the challenge, half expecting nobody to be able to do it. because deep down, I was convinced this level was impossible. But to my surprise, literally a few hours after my post went up, people already started beating the level. The first person to beat the level was Dememes, whose strategy was completely different to mine. First of all, they used Sunshroom instead of Twin Sunflower, which makes sense because of how fast paced the level is. But the real difference here was that they didn't use Squash, Kiwi Beast, or even Homing Thistle. Instead, they used Magnifying Grass on the minecart. By stalling out the zombies as long as possible to produce sun and chip away at the zombies with Magnifying Grass, they managed to win. But there was still a question on my mind. Was it possible with the current version of the game? In my post I allowed any version of the game. Dememes used quite an old version which allowed them to use a spring bean plant food below the combo on the final wave, which isn't possible in the current version of the game, which I was playing on for the rest of the challenge. But I soon received an answer, as another run, this time in the modern version of the game, was submitted to me from Discord user Ichimiku. Their run also used Magnifying Grass, but differed in the use of Tile Turnip to produce extra sun to demolish the final wave, instead of using the spring bean tech. I was honestly shocked that I never thought of using Tile Turnip in the whole run. So congrats to Dememes and Ichimiku for beating the level. And with modern day 30 complete, the only levels that remained were the Zomboss conveyor battles, which as usual, we could skip. So that's it. This is usually where I'd announce the exact percentage of the game that was possible, but this whole challenge was actually possible. It wasn't easy, but we conquered all 11 worlds with just one lane of lawn. So thanks for everyone who watched the journey unfold, like and subscribe if you want more challenge videos, and I'll see you in the next one.